So how did you start then about figuring out how you were going to design this umbrella, or who was designing it, what it looks like, what problems are you solving within it, and like even just what's going to be the look that's going to make people say, "Hey, I want to use that product because it just looks cool."
So when I was designing the umbrellas, I knew I also, in addition to the environmental component, really wanted the durability. So it started to come together a bit when I started piecing together, okay, I want a stainless steel pole because when you're walking around, one of the biggest issues is that things bend or snap. So I wanted everything to be really strong. And I do think in general, typically higher quality products and materials do just kind of naturally look better. And in this case, I really wanted them to look chic and fashionable and be an accessory as much as it was an improvement on a typically low quality consumer product. So I wanted to go with ocean themed colors for the canopies. So that's why we have blue and green and gray. And then I wanted there to be a fun sea turtle print. I wanted one to have a print just to see if there was an appetite for that. And that actually has been the best seller, which is really cool. Everyone loves turtles, so that was a good one. But I really wanted them to look fashionable and something that you not super like cartoony or anything like that. I wanted it to look like an accessory that you could use every day if you live in an area with high rainfall. So that's how we chose those colors and the pattern. And we're going to continue to roll out products too in similar colors. So very excited about that.
Yeah, you're right. When you have something that feels luxury and looks luxury, people definitely respond to that. And that's why, some of the, let's just say designer brands, people are so in love with it because it feels, I think, just more tangible, it just feels better in your hands. And you have to do that with a product like an umbrella too, because you're changing people's attitudes on something because your products are not cheap, right? So they can very easily go into a drugstore and buy a $3.99 umbrella and,
Mhm.
the dry umbrellas are quite, a bit more expensive. So there has to be something that they feel is worth that because we can say, well, you know what? It's made from ocean-bound plastic and you're saving the environment. But if it doesn't feel good and look good to them, you're not going to get that sale, right?
Correct, definitely. And I think there's also the component with umbrellas is the frequency in which you have to buy them. So to your point, using them once or twice and then you throw them away, they're definitely a lower price point, but they also, you have to think about the repeat purchase and how many times you're spending that lower amount, equivalent to how many umbrellas you ultimately have to buy. Whereas dry umbrellas come with a lifetime guarantee. And we really focus on the longevity of the product so you won't have to continuously be buying them. Because we also believe no product's really sustainable if you have to be buying it over and over again and it's just going to end up in a landfill. So durability and longevity was a big part of our business.
That is so true. It is so true. It's like it has to be have a certain longevity. Otherwise, it's just like the point is null of what you're trying to do. So tell me then, what were kind of the biggest production hurdles that you've encountered? So you decided you wanted to use this, what we call this ocean-bound plastic. How were you able to then define those suppliers that are going to work within not only what you want it to be, but to be able to supply enough of this material to you for your supply chain and your production process? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it definitely was a long process. There was some trial and error, and especially it being the first product I've ever brought to market or ever created. It was a learning experience. Um, what I ultimately ended up doing was reaching out to an ocean plastic certification company. So they're really the North Star in terms of certifying that the material is authentic and is actually what we want it to be, right? We want the umbrellas to be authentic and to actually be having this positive impact. So I went to them and I asked which fabric suppliers they work with right now, which fabric suppliers they certify. So they introduced me to my fabric mill, and the fabric mill had an existing relationship with an umbrella factory. So I kind of worked backwards a little bit. Instead of finding an umbrella manufacturer, trying to get them to work with a specialty fabric supplier, trying to make sure the fabric was certified, I kind of worked my way backwards into the my supply chain.
Yeah, honestly, that would be so. I mean, now that we have things like, these AI chats that are out there, you could probably have a conversation a little bit easier, but you started this way before them because I'm sitting here thinking I wouldn't even know where to start with this. And I consider myself pretty technically savvy, but I'm like, how would I even start figuring out how to get this material? What kind of manufacturer is going to use it? So, the fact that you even figured all that out before the AI chats, I'm super impressed. Once again, at least that Google was our friend back in those days. I don't know how much more in the future, but that's a different conversation. But so, okay, you've used different materials in this. You have the bamboo handles, you're using stainless steel shaft. What drove your decision to choose those materials as well in the production of this?
Yep, so stainless steel is much more durable. The alternatives in the umbrella manufacturing process were aluminum, which is great in terms of being infinitely recyclable, but is not really strong enough to withstand large storms, and that's led to a lot of the breakage of umbrellas. So I really wanted something very strong, so we went with stainless steel. And for the bamboo handles, that took a long time because I didn't want to utilize more plastic and continue contributing to the issue. I also didn't want to use wood and cut down trees, and it seemed very counterintuitive to solve a plastic problem while contributing to deforestation. So it took me a while, but ultimately landed on bamboo, which is the fastest regenerative growing land plant. So we cut some down for our handles, and then it grows within 3 feet within the next day. So it's very, very fast. It didn't feel like it was having as much of an environmental impact, which was obviously a huge part in designing these. So we went with bamboo for the handle, and I just love the way it looks. I think to your point, the aesthetic of it, I think umbrellas with bamboo handles really elevate the look. So they're very smooth to the touch, and I think they look pretty chic. So that was the rest of the build out.
It definitely looks chic. Of course, I was all over your website before our conversation, and I mean, it is a really cool umbrella. It's really, really pretty. And I'll let everyone listening know that I can attest to how quickly bamboo does grow because we have a gigantic bamboo patch that was planted next to my apartment building by the previous owners of this single family home that was there.